A glass of milk looks harmless. But little more than a century ago, especially during a hot summer in a crowded city, it could become a vehicle for disease and sometimes death. Before reliable refrigeration, milk began warming the moment it left the cow. It might then spend hours traveling in an unrefrigerated container, pass through several handlers, and sit outside a shop before reaching a family. Along the way, bacteria could multiply rapidly. If the milk came from an infected animal, was diluted with contaminated water, or touched dirty equipment, the danger became even greater. Children were particularly vulnerable. Milk was one of their most important foods, yet their immune systems were still developing. Contaminated milk could spread illnesses such as tuberculosis, typhoid fever, scarlet fever, diphtheria, and severe diarrheal infections. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, outbreaks linked to unsafe milk contributed to high infant and child mortality in growing industrial cities. Pasteurization eventually became one of the most important defenses. By heating milk for a controlled period, producers could kill many dangerous microorganisms, but pasteurization did not solve everything. Milk could still be contaminated afterward, and the bacteria that remained could multiply if it was kept warm. That is where refrigeration changed the rules. Cold does not magically sterilize food. A refrigerator does not kill every bacterium, and some microorganisms can still grow at low temperatures. What cooling does is slow biological activity. When perishable food is kept at about 4 degrees Celsius or 40 degrees Fahrenheit or colder, many disease-causing and spoilage bacteria reproduce far more slowly than they do at room temperature. The difference can be dramatic. Under favorable conditions, some bacteria can double in number in roughly 20 minutes. A small population can therefore become an enormous one within hours. Lowering the temperature interrupts that rapid expansion, giving food a longer and safer usable life. Today, opening a refrigerator door feels completely ordinary. We place milk, meat, eggs, leftovers, and vegetables inside without thinking about the invisible race against microbes. But for most of human history, preserving food required constant effort. People dried meat, salted fish, fermented vegetables, smoked food, stored grain, and packed ice into insulated buildings. Wealthy households and businesses sometimes used ice houses, where blocks of winter ice could survive well into summer beneath layers of straw or sawdust. These methods were ingenious, but they were limited. They could change the taste and texture of food, required local resources, or failed during unusually warm weather. Then humans learned not merely to store natural ice, but to manufacture cold. Mechanical refrigeration developed gradually during the 19th century. Early machines compressed and expanded gases or vapors to move heat from one place to another. That principle still powers most modern refrigerators. The machine does not create cold as a substance. Instead, refrigerant absorbs heat from inside an insulated space and releases it outside. That is why the coils or vents behind a refrigerator feel warm. The first refrigeration systems were large, expensive, and often dangerous. Some early refrigerants were toxic or flammable. The machines were used mainly in breweries, meatpacking plants, warehouses, and factories. Domestic refrigerators became widespread only later. As electricity networks expanded, manufacturing improved, and safer, more reliable designs reached ordinary households. Yet the kitchen refrigerator was only one part of a much larger transformation. Imagine raising cattle hundreds of kilometers from the people who will eat the meat. Without refrigeration, the animals often had to be transported alive. The journey was slow, expensive, and stressful, and some animals died or lost weight before reaching the market. Refrigerated railway cars changed that. Meat could be processed closer to where livestock was raised, chilled, and then transported over long distances. Refrigerated ships connected continents, allowing products such as meat, dairy, fruit, and fish to reach consumers who had never previously had reliable access to them. Cold storage warehouses appeared near farms, factories, ports, and cities. Later came refrigerated trucks, supermarket display cases, and temperature-controlled delivery centers. Together, they formed the cold chain. an uninterrupted system designed to keep temperature-sensitive products within a safe range from production to consumption. The crucial word is uninterrupted. A frozen product can leave a perfectly controlled factory, but if it sits for hours on a warm loading dock, the protection may be lost. Chilling it again does not necessarily reverse the damage. Bacteria may already have multiplied, ice crystals may have changed the food structure, or a medicine may have lost part of its effectiveness. That is why the cold chain depends on far more than refrigerators. It requires insulated packaging, temperature sensors, reliable electricity, trained workers, backup generators, careful scheduling, and records that reveal whether a shipment became too warm. Its impact extends far beyond food. Many vaccines must be stored within specific temperature ranges while traveling from a factory to a clinic. A vaccine may cross an ocean, enter a national warehouse, move to a regional center, and finally arrive in a remote health facility. At every stage, its temperature must be controlled. Some vaccines tolerate ordinary refrigerated conditions. Others require freezing, and a few need extremely low temperatures. If the chain fails, doses may become unusable even though they still look normal. Refrigeration, therefore, does not simply preserve a product, it helps make large vaccination programs possible. Insulin provides another example. It does not always need to remain refrigerated during the entire period in which it is being used, depending on the product and manufacturer's instructions. But reliable cooling is vital for long-term storage and distribution, especially in hot climates. Without it, maintaining a stable supply becomes much more difficult. Blood storage also depends on carefully controlled temperatures. Red blood cells, platelets, and plasma do not all have identical requirements, but each must be handled under specific conditions. Modern surgery, trauma care, cancer treatment, and emergency medicine rely on systems that collect, test, store, and transport blood components safely. Refrigeration has also helped reduce food waste and protect communities from shortages. A successful harvest no longer has to be eaten immediately or preserved only through drying, salting, or canning. Farmers can store produce, fishers can preserve their catch, and distributors can move food between regions with different growing seasons. This does not mean refrigeration solved hunger. Hunger is also driven by poverty, war, inequality, infrastructure failures, and political decisions. A country may produce enough food while many people still cannot afford it. Cooling cannot repair all of those problems, but it can extend shelf life, stabilize supplies, and prevent part of a harvest from spoiling before it reaches consumers. That makes refrigeration an important tool for food security, even if it is not a complete solution. It also creates new challenges. Refrigerators and cold storage facilities consume electricity. Older refrigerants damaged the ozone layer, while some later replacements became powerful greenhouse gases. Modern systems are moving toward refrigerants with lower environmental impact, better insulation, more efficient compressors, leak prevention, and electricity from cleaner sources. The irony is that as the planet becomes warmer, the need for cooling grows, while inefficient cooling can contribute to further warming. The next refrigeration revolution must therefore expand access without repeating the environmental costs of the past, and access remains deeply unequal. In wealthier regions, the cold chain is so reliable that it becomes almost invisible. Food arrives chilled, pharmacies store medicines correctly, and hospitals maintain backup power. In poorer or remote communities, a broken refrigerator, unreliable electrical grid, damaged road, or lack of fuel can disrupt the entire system. A health clinic may receive vaccines but have nowhere dependable to store them. A farmer may grow nutritious produce but be forced to sell it immediately at a low price because there is no cold storage facility nearby. Fish may spoil before reaching an inland market. In these situations, refrigeration is not a minor convenience. It can affect income, nutrition, public health, and survival. Solutions are appearing in many forms: solar-powered refrigerators, highly insulated vaccine carriers, remote temperature monitors, efficient community cold rooms, and smaller cooling systems designed for farms and fishing villages. The challenge is not simply to deliver a machine, it is to build a dependable network around it, with maintenance, spare parts, trained technicians, financing, and stable energy. So, how many lives has refrigeration saved? There is no honest single number. Refrigeration emerged alongside sanitation, clean water, pasteurization, antibiotics, vaccination, electricity, and modern food regulation. Their effects overlap, making it impossible to assign every prevented death to one invention, but the broader conclusion is hard to dispute. By slowing bacterial growth, making foods safer, preserving essential medicines, supporting blood storage, reducing spoilage, and enabling long-distance distribution, refrigeration has helped prevent illness and death on an enormous scale. Over generations, its contribution almost certainly reaches into the millions of lives. The real hero was never just the humming box in the kitchen. It was the entire system built around controlled temperature: the refrigerated train, the ship, the warehouse, the truck, the supermarket, the laboratory, the pharmacy, and the hospital. Still, the kitchen refrigerator is where this vast achievement becomes personal. Behind its plain white door is the final link in a chain stretching across farms, factories, roads, ports, power stations, and scientific laboratories. One of humanity's most important life-saving technologies does not look heroic. It does not sit in a monument or dominate a skyline. It stands quietly in the corner of the kitchen, switching itself on and off, protecting a glass of milk,